your readers, right, they're voracious, and if you've created a character they love or a series they love, they want it, and so you're feeling like the pressure to keep writing. So it is easy to burn out. I think it is
Yeah.
easy for writers who are writing at those levels thinking, oh my God, I have to publish a book a month. I have to keep up with it. No, you don't.
Welcome to Writers Uncorked, the podcast where we uncork the truth about the writer's life. We're your hosts, best-selling authors Jenna and Michele Scott, and we're here to bring you the no BS chats you've been craving.
Get ready to raise a glass to the real, unfiltered world of writers. This is Writers Uncorked.
All right, we are back for another episode, and we're going to be talking about writer's block, which tends to come up a lot of times, I think, in our writing career. No matter where you're at, I've always talked to a lot of author friends, clients, and it always comes up one time or other. And I think we've both experienced it in our time, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. I've had a little bit of experience of it. I don't have it too often anymore. I have certain things that I do that if I get stuck, and the things I can tell you that I do that help me is, one, if I'm like stuck, I don't necessarily get stuck days on end. I might get stuck on a chapter, I might get stuck on a scene, and then I'm blocked. I will go for a walk. People probably think I'm crazy because I will start running dialogue in my head then as I'm walking. I don't know what it is about the act of physically moving, but it's getting out of my office, getting out of my space and stepping out into the outside. And then I'm like, I start doing dialogue, and I might even say it out loud if nobody's around. And then like invariably the scene will come to me. It's the same thing same thing will happen when I go for a drive in the car. The other thing I do is music plays a lot in my books. There's always somebody's listening to a song, singing a song. There's always a chapter like that. So a lot of times I'll turn on music and the music will inspire me. Or, one of the things too that writers can do and they have to consider is maybe they just need a break. Sometimes you got to take a week off. You got to give yourself a break and you'll get through it. Like, it is okay. What we do is not easy. Writing full-length fiction is not easy. So if where you find your solace is a beach, go to the beach. If it's the mountains, go to the mountains. If it's being with, your dog or your family, whatever that looks like to you, or going to a museum, take a break and give yourself that kind of grace. And I think that will help get the creative juices going. Read somebody else's book. You should be reading a lot anyway. Read. And I'm not saying, to do it to copy, but it just helps get you outside of yourself.
Yeah. And I think there's different, as you were talking about, there's different types of writer's block. Like there could be, the writer's block of like, this scene is just not coming to me and I can't think of how it's going to work out. And as you're saying, like I do that too. I'm like, I know where it wants to go, but like I can't. And I formulate the scene in my head too, like a pitch, like a movie in a sense. And I'll always find that if I step out of here and go to the gym and I'm moving, like it plays out like a movie, or having a shower, or just somewhere away from just staring at the computer, like being like, come on, get the word. Like I need these words out, and like forcing it, stepping away and finding a place where it does happen. And I think the point of that is taking away that stress and that pressure of forcing yourself to write it. You're taking yourself out of that and away to build out that scene. And there's different writer's blocks. So there's the scene, it could be the chapter that you're working on. You might need to switch to another chapter that is talking to you, or a different character that's talking. If you're writing in multiple POV, like that tends to help. But sometimes there's writer's block of like full on, can't think, can't write. Like it's a full on block. And no matter how much you step away and try and do little bits and stuff like that, it's just not like you're like frozen in a way, I think.
To me, that hasn't happened to me. But if I look at that from the outside, to me, that kind of block is more about something that's going on within you that may not have anything at all to do with your writing, that has to be dealt with, right? It could be something as heavy as going through a divorce. It could be, you're sick, or right. It could be something like that you have to deal with, or you're just going through some real positive things in life that are just keeping you really busy. And you're just, kids graduating, or birthday parties, or whatever that you're planning. One of the things, and this isn't going to be popular with the pansters out there, but one of the ways to prevent writer's block is through outlining. If you have a roadmap, right? And like you said, then you limit your full-on blocks. That's not to say you're not going to get blocked with your scene or your chapter, but a really good way to get out of it is then go, oh, I'm going to write, instead of writing chapter 5 right now, I'm going to write chapter 25 right now.
Yeah.
And then, and also having, at least for me, I do very extensive character outlines before I even do plot outlines, and those characters give away the plot much of the time. And we can go into those methods at some point because it's really on craft and how I craft. And I know you have a crafting process that it'd be interesting to discuss. But if I do that, if I get stuck, I can look at my character outlines and they'll talk to me, so to speak.
Be re-inspired.
So it's being prepared. If you're prepared, done the outlining and all of the thought process. Now, it's not to say, if I was a pantser, and I'm not, but the recommendation I would say here is your story is told through questions. So there's always a question in your story that needs to be answered. And the basic question is, what happens next? What happens next? And even if you can't write an exciting scene because you're not motivated right then, or, because your book, your chapters, your scenes all have to be implemented. They all have to have some tension implemented into them. And we can talk about tension some other time. That doesn't mean the kind of tension necessarily like, there's the killer behind the closet door, right? There's all sorts of types of tension, but it has to be there. So, that's.
Yeah. And I guess, talking on like long-term, because I had long-term writer's block, probably, I think it was during pretty much the full-on pandemic. And I had so many books outlined and ready to go because I like outlining and having it all there, but just nothing. Like I had this long-term, just like I wasn't inspired and I didn't know what it was. And I would sit there and being like, come on, just write, blah, blah, blah. But I switched to nonfiction writing and I wrote a couple of I didn't stop writing. I think it was about 2 years actually full on not writing fiction. And I switched to nonfiction and was writing self-help, nonfiction, practical books. And that sort of helped me because I was like, okay, well, why is this happening? Like, why can't I write fiction? And I didn't know, but I was like, okay, well, what am I inspired to write? And it was this nonfiction stuff. So I listened to that and I followed that path and I accepted the fact that, okay, right now, this fiction writing isn't working and that's okay, but I'm getting pulled in this other direction and this is what I'm being called to write. So I'm going to flip and write to that. And it wasn't till later on when we came out of the pandemic, and because we couldn't go like 5 kilometers, I don't know what that is in miles, but we couldn't go far from our house and we could just go out for walks. And because I worked from home, I wasn't seeing anyone and it was just apart from Dylan, my boyfriend, but I just wasn't getting out and doing stuff, or I was doing walking the same track, even though I did it backwards, or like the same thing. And Dylan was like, I think what's happening is you're not inspired because you haven't been able to go out and people watch, but not in a creepy way. But I like going out and like sitting down at a cafe and like watching how people interact and, what's happening and just watching the world go by and things like that. And because I didn't have that, everything just dried up and I just couldn't write. So I found when I did come out of the pandemic and got inspired again, and then I found that groove. But I think the lessons here are that, yeah, sometimes it might dry up. And even though you've got like a whole folder full of book ideas, and because that's what I had, we always have all these different ideas, they were there and like the ideas were there, but I physically just couldn't write them. And I was being called in a different direction. And I think that's okay to listen to that.
No, it's definitely okay. And I do think as writers, we need to be around life, like what you're saying. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but I would go so far out on a limb to say that as writers, I don't think none of us knew how to handle COVID in our writing itself. It was like, if I'm writing in present day, if I'm writing a mystery in present day, or I'm writing a romance in present day, do I talk about masks? Do I talk about vaccines? Do I talk about COVID? Do I just ignore the fact that we are living through this, right? And so those were questions that were coming up for us as authors, is how do we handle this if we're writing present day fiction? And I think what we saw come out, even on TV, is we saw things that were set in different time periods, right? The 70s, 80s, pre-COVID, post-COVID, like real futuristic stuff. Those were those became popular, like on your Netflixes and so forth. So I think now we have a better grasp on how we're going to handle it as authors. And I think
Yeah.
now I think now we probably, you'll see writers including it, but maybe not making it a huge part of their story. It's like, maybe
Yeah.
mentioning that,
I think
because
there was a book on quarantine or something. It was like a dark romance that I read, and I actually didn't mind it because I could relate to it being in quarantine and like being that restricted, and they couldn't go anywhere and all these events happen. But it wasn't a major player. It was just like, yeah, we're in quarantine, and then all of this fiction stuff's happening, and I quite liked that because it was relatable in a good way. Like it was, yeah, it wasn't negative.
I know I didn't write a whole lot during I was writing a thriller. I did put out a thriller during that time, and I did not. I put it because I set the thriller was set in like 2018, so pre-COVID. So, the next one that's going to come out in that series will be post, and it'll probably get mentioned. Maybe, maybe not, because now I don't feel the need to.
No, I don't even think it needs. Like it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's off topic. But I was just curious about that with you.
Yeah. So I think those are the different types of writer blocks. And I think some key takeaways from this is knowing first that it's okay to have a writer's block. Like it's okay to feel that. And the sign, like, you might be full on burnt out and you might need just time to be re-inspired. And I think accepting that fact and not pushing it is a huge step for yourself mentally, physically, for your well-being, like, accepting the fact and not putting judgment on yourself or being negative and being like, oh, I just bloody right. Like, what is wrong with you? And whatever the inner critic's going to say, you got to be kind and accept it.
You have to. I think it's really hard in today's book world in that your readers, right, they're voracious, and if you've created a character they love or a series they love, they want it, and so you're feeling like the pressure to keep writing. So it is easy to burn out. I think it is easy for writers who are writing at those levels thinking, oh my God, I have to publish a book a month, like to keep up with it. No, you don't. Your readers are still going to come back. They're still going to find you if you take 6 months to publish that second book or that third book, right? They'll read somebody else during that time, and then they'll pick up your book when it does come out. They'll be excited to read it. I think you have to you have to know that. And you have to know as a writer, there's plenty of books to go around, and there's plenty of right. Don't ever worry about what anybody else is doing. Do your thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're doing yourself a disservice of rushing and putting that pressure on. And I've seen it time and time again of like authors putting up posts like, I have to push it back for my mental health because I'm not doing you a good service. If I'm going to rush this and put it out, it's not going to be my best work. It's not going to feel good. And at the end of the day, books can be changed, obviously, when you put them out, but they do have a longevity and they do have life in them. And, you want to put out your best work. You don't want to feel that pressure. And it's funny you say about that book a month. Like this year, my schedule, I'm like, all right, I'm going back in fiction writing and I'm going to write a heap of books. And it was like a book a month from February to November or something. And I'm in April now, the end of April, and I've scratched a lot of things from the rest of the year because I'm just like, I can't keep up with this. Like it's so much pressure, and you just got to take that away and look at the factors of like, okay, well, what pressure am I feeling to get this done, and what's not aligning with me, and checking in as to why you've got this block. And sometimes it is those pressures of the outside of thinking, oh, I've got to do this for my readers. They're expecting it. They need me. And that's like people pleasing, and taking that away and being like, I've got to give my best work. And at the end of the day, I've got to feel aligned and be feeling good about that.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good point. Very good.
Yeah. So I guess some steps to, if you are feeling like you have got a block would be, looking at, okay, well, what's happening in terms of, what's coming up when you are staring at that screen, taking some time away, whether it's taking a week off, a month off, whatever it is that you need, and checking in with yourself and asking those hard questions and journaling it out, or talking to somebody that will listen, or, whatever it is. And stepping outside, going for a walk, having a bath, playing with your, whatever it is.
And whatever it is, go out and play ball with your kid or your dog or whatever. Yeah.
And then looking at it, then asking yourself, okay, well, is it maybe the book? Is this book just not happening for me right now? Do I need to switch it up and write something else? Or like just asking yourself those questions, because you're not going to I don't think you'll get to the bottom of it until you really ask yourself those hard questions, and then you'll get to the bottom of why you're feeling this way. And then you're able to resolve that and push those things that aren't helping you and that are causing that block, and you're going to get to the bottom of where this block's coming from and able to resolve it, I think.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
You're definitely, you got to give yourself that. Yeah, it is okay to admit that this book isn't working.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I've probably written 8 to 10 partials and then went, this doesn't work. You know, this is before I was published, and just be like, this doesn't work. I've changed outlines completely on books when I realized this piece doesn't work. It's okay to
it's just
do that.
It's not ignoring those signs. It's asking the hard questions. And your neighbor doesn't know, or your best friend, like they can offer advice, but at the end of the day, you got to come back to yourself and you know the answer. Even if it's the answer you don't want to hear, you know the answer and you know what you need to do. So you got to have your own back, trust that, and that will move you forward.
Exactly.
And then just like, boom, that's it. But if anyone is feeling on the verge of writer's block or burnout or just not feeling it, feel free to comment on this and let us know what action that you're going to be taking based on what we've provided you with today, and let us know what has been supportive, and take those steps. And anything that you want to ask us or any situations, please do comment, and we'll be happy to provide any feedback.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, until next time. Bye.
Bye.